In this video, I'm gonna break down a 3-step financial formula on what it takes to grow your firm from $1 to $10 million in revenue, and most importantly, how to make sure you never run out of money as you're reinvesting in your law firm's growth. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna give you a free tool bundle on our financial resources, along with a way that you can put this into action with our company right now. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Bill Hauser, CEO of SMB Team. 5.5 years ago, I started this company. And now 5.5 years later, we've invented something that's called the Law Firm Growth Acceleration Model, which works backwards from what does it take to create world-class lead generation, a world-class intake system, a self-managing law firm that runs itself, and high profits as you scale. We now work with 400 of the fastest growing law firms in the United States that are growing at an average year-over-year annual revenue growth rate of 81%. Which is 16 times faster than the average law firm in the United States. So I'm gonna break down why our clients are growing this fast from a financial perspective so that you can model it in your law firm. The reason this is so important to me is because 3 years ago, as my company was doubling and tripling its revenues year over year, which we've done for 5 years in a row, I was running out of money. And this created this ferocity in me to figure this out because I came from a bankrupt family in 2008, the financial crisis. My family paving business went completely under. So when this happened to me, it triggered this insanity really in my mind to solve this problem. And the first thing that I did was I went and hunted down who were the best people in the United States teaching small service business financials. So I found this coach that I spent $20,000. I flew down to Arizona for a 3-day finance workshop, and I basically learned Finance 101, and I broke it down into my own financial formula. So after I started practicing some of this stuff, I started trying to figure out how can I hire an in-house CFO. But I realized as my company was doing, a couple $1 million a year, I couldn't afford a full-time in-house CFO. So then I started looking at the concept of a fractional CFO, a financial executive that would spend a few hours a month kind of doing managerial strategic finance, looking at my books, my profit and loss statement, looking at my cash flow statement, looking at my growth goals, and coming up with financial insights that would help propel my growth. The reason the fractional CFO is so important to us is because our bookkeeper was really just tracking the numbers and telling us, hey, your profit was X, but they weren't giving us answers and reasons behind why X was X. And with a fractional CFO, we started getting those answers. So at the end of the first year with that fractional CFO, we saw a ton of results. Then we ended up choosing a higher level fractional CFO for the last 2 years that we worked with. After those 2 years, we decided there is a huge missing gap in the legal industry that we need to solve. With that being said, I'm super excited to dive into the 3 financial principles that will give you all the battle scars that I learned and hunted down experts to learn in this video so that you can benefit from it now and roll it out in your law firm. So the real problem for law firm owners when it comes to the finances of their firm is you probably don't have the budget, just like I didn't, to hire a full-time in-house CFO. And that leaves you on an island to make all the financial decisions that are necessary to get to the next level. So let's strap down. I'm gonna break down these 3 financial secrets for you so you can roll them out right now in your firm. Secret number 1, the CEO decision and those 3 financial habits of lawyers looking to become law firm CEOs. The decision first has to be made by you that you are a CEO now that happens to run a law firm, and oh yeah, you also happen to be a lawyer. In that order. See, most lawyers who believe they are a lawyer first and they just happen to run a business, they don't make this identity shift around what a CEO actually does every single day. A CEO's main responsibility is to make executive decisions that drive the business. So this basically means to be the CEO of your law practice requires you to embrace the numbers of your law practice. I remember how this was for me in my first couple of years of running my company. We grew so fast that at one point I was the one that was actually doing the work for my clients. Maybe you can relate. I also was the one on every single intake call. Every single sales call had to go through me. When I made the CEO decision, I decided I was gonna run my client work and run my intake and sales and marketing organization as a CEO. So let me break down the 3 steps within secret number 1. So the first step is you have to make what I call the expansion decision, that you are going to grow your law firm leaps and bounds faster and further than you ever thought imaginable in the past. That's gonna force you to eject yourself from the day-to-day responsibilities so that you can truly become the CEO of your practice. Step number 2 has to do with you embracing the 2 managerial finance meetings of a CEO. Your strategic planning meeting and your financial statement review meeting, which should happen every single month. The financial statement review meeting is back looking. You're looking at your financial statements and you're trying to come up with insights that can maximize the profits and cash flow velocity of your law firm. A 6-month financial statement review meeting will look at the trends of your gross revenues January through June. And by looking at your profit and loss statement month over month, you're very easily able to come up with insights of places where either A, you're spending money and there's not a return, or B, you are spending money and there's a huge return. The second meeting that's most important is the strategic planning meeting. This is where a law firm owner creates a clear, measured plan for what their revenues are gonna be, what their profit margins are gonna be, and what their expense budget is gonna be across all categories of the firm. So let's say you created a 12-month plan for the year that you're currently in, and now we're halfway through. Well, the strategic planning process requires you to update the actuals for the first 6 months of the year so that you can adjust your projections for the final 6 months of the year. So this is where you come up with strategic decisions as the CEO of your law firm to drive growth and drive profitability and drive efficiency within the firm. And once you start adopting these 2 meetings, if you infuse it with quality questions, you will start seeing insights that will completely expand your mind as the resource allocator, CEO of your law firm. All right, secret number 2. This is the strategic planning secret. Step number 1 always starts with doing the upside math. This is where you gotta get dreaming a little bit and actually project out, where is my revenue gonna come from for the next 12 months? So if you wanna grow your firm by $1 million in revenue, and your average case value is $10,000, you need 100 new cases to reach that goal. And your upside math, keep in mind, is a decision. You decide what your revenues are and your profits are. So now that we've done the upside math, it's budget prep and utilization time, okay? And there's a couple of steps that you wanna follow within this step to make sure you get this done right. Step number 1 within the budget planning is you wanna set A, B, and C revenue targets, low, medium, and stretch. You can create your revenue targets based on a financial formula where you look at historical data. Your low target would be the average of your best 3 months from the prior year divided by 3 multiplied by 12. Your mid target is going to be your best month times 12. And then the third one is your stretch. This is where you take your best month multiplied by 12 and then you add an inflationary kicker like 20%, for example. Step number 2 of the budget planning process. So you filled in your revenue numbers. Now you fill in your net profits. So do you want to profit 20% of your total law firm's revenues? Great. Pretend as though that 20% is not going to exist, right? In your law firm's financial model. Pull that aside. Step 3, now we have what's called a salary cap. And based on your revenue per employee, which is an efficiency metric that you set for your law firm, you determine how many staff you can afford to have based on where your firm's at now and where your firm's going to be in the future. The healthy revenue per employee for a service business is $250,000 in revenue per employee. So that means a $1 million law firm should only have 4 employees. By changing your revenue per employee calculation, you can actually change the quality of people that you're hiring because you're able to afford higher level people with higher level salaries and incentive plans, which then attract higher performance. So step number 4 of the budget planning process is the incentive planning sheet. This is where you actually list out the names of every employee on your law firm's roster and you determine how much you're willing to pay for high performance in their role. And then last but not least is your sales and marketing plan, which includes how much money you spend on intake and how much money you spend on marketing ads, content creation, in-house marketing roles, etc. I would prepare to spend 20% on marketing, and then you budget allocate through the strategic planning process, and you determine where are we going to spend our dollars, behind what keyword groups on Google, behind what ads on Facebook, and how does that tie into my overall financial analysis? What I learned on what case types I want more of, what case types I want less of, is that reflected in your marketing plan? And this last part of secret number 2 is creating a KPI revolution, which stands for Key Performance Indicator Revolution. If salaries is going to be one of your biggest expenses as a law firm owner, you better make damn sure that you're getting a return from your investments in salaries so that you don't run out of money. So this requires you to create revenue-related employee KPIs and non-revenue related employee KPIs. So a revenue employee KPI is very simple. You want to create something that is the closest determinant to producing high margin revenue. And for a non-revenue producing KPI, you want to incentivize efficiency. And your KPIs come from your A, B, and C revenue ranges. So you should have an A, B, and C KPI for every member of your team. All right, secret number 3. This is where we learn to maximize cash flow and profits as you're reinvesting in growth. The number one outcome that you should be striving for is that your bank account is growing at the end of every month. Now, the only reason this won't happen is because of the rule of 40. This rule of 40 is such an important principle because what it breaks down is that your profit margin plus your growth combined should at least be 40%. If your growth rate is 40% or higher and you're operating at close to no profit margin, that's actually okay because you're reinvesting in staff just before you need them. You're reinvesting in marketing just before you need the marketing so that you can stumble into $1 million in growth. If you're truly reinvesting everything, all of your excess profits into growth, into marketing and labor, then you should expect your profit margins to be low, but you still should be throughout this process paying yourself a very large salary. The first is your profit margin multipliers. There are so many areas of profit suckers that can enter your business. One of them, very simply, being your average fee. You can change your average fee, and that's typically going to have one of the biggest impacts on your gross margin. Similarly, prong number 2 is looking at your labor effectiveness or labor utilization rate. You have to become obsessed with your revenue per employee, okay? And then revenue per attorney. So you have fee producing and then you have non-fee producing roles in the firm. And the summarization of all the roles in the firm divided by your revenue should be 250,000 if the firm is running with wild efficiency. The second thing is understanding that the lowest cost person should be doing every task. So if you're paying someone $300,000 a year, they should be focused on tasks that are associated with that high of a compensation plan. And they should be delegating everything that's not associated with that. The third is to increase skill per employee. This is also known as employee aptitude. What have you done in the last 30, 60, 90 days to invest in your team's aptitude? And last but not least is making cash flow optimizations. Cash flow is very different from profit margins. Profit margins are basically theoretical numbers that you see in your books, especially if you use accrual accounting. And we have to treat our business as a separate cash flow model versus profits. If none of your clients pay you until the last day of every single month, and all of your expenses come out at the beginning of the month, that's probably a bad cash flow decision. We should probably reverse that and pull your client payments to the beginning of the month and pull your expenses to the end of the month. A rolling cash flow forecast actually looks at, on a quarterly basis, where your cash flow dips are and where your cash flow surpluses are. Because the worst thing I know for me as a business owner is when I log into my bank account randomly throughout the month and it just happens to be on a cash flow dip day. Another very big solution to cash flow is accounts receivable. If you're a fee-based firm and you don't have a bulletproof accounts receivable process, it is a nightmare as you start growing your firm. Hedging against accounts receivable is such an important strategy because it literally goes right to your bottom line. And last but not least on cash flow is changing your billing practices, billing clients at the beginning of the month and pushing expenses to a period after when you accept client payments on a monthly basis, or negotiating net 30, net 90, whatever payment terms with different vendors. Now, the solution to all of this that I just broke down is those two meetings, the strategic planning meeting and the financial statement review meeting, so long as you're doing it with an expert that knows the lingo of finance. So if you're looking to put everything you just learned into action for your law firm, then it's with great pleasure that I announce SMB Team's Fractional CFO solution. This is designed for firms doing over $1 million a year in revenue and have growth goals for the future of their firm. So let me explain what's included in our Fractional CFO solution. First is it includes initial setup, because oftentimes when law firm owners come to us, their books are a complete mess. Number two is we give you monthly one-on-one financial statement review meetings where we go through your profit and loss statement every single month. We go through your cash flow statement every single month. And then you also give us some access to data regarding what the results are of those investments. And we look at the data and the financials, and we help you make managerial CEO level decisions to optimize the profits, cash flow, and growth rate of your law firm. And then number three, since there's so much financial lingo that most law firm owners who work with us don't know, we actually give you a third monthly call, which is called our financial education call, around concepts like optimizing revenue per employee or optimizing your key performance indicators to provide higher ROI from it, et cetera, et cetera. Then we back this up with bookkeeping assistance. Let's say we come up with some insights on one of the 2 or 3 calls. We'll actually help communicate the changes from those insights to your bookkeeper. And then last but not least, we're also gonna be on call for you to give you some assistance, whether you need a quick team training for your team on something, whether you need us to help put together a new financial report for you, whether you need us to help you with some tax strategy advice. We are of service to you, and you can just email our fractional CFO and we will provide guidance throughout the quarter as needed. So if you're ready to push the excuses aside and put this into action and learn about our fractional CFO solution, then what I want you to do right now while you're on the page is click the link around this video and apply to work with our fractional CFO. We want to keep this super boutique and really high quality for the firms that join. So apply below to see if it's a mutual fit, and I'll see you on the other side. Stay great.